services. So we have learned yesterday that fund-based financial services means it is a sort of financial support or financial service which involves disbursement, actual disbursement of funds from the lender to the borrower. That means once the borrower applies for a loan, the loan is sanctioned on his name, and that will be credited to his to his bank account, from where he'll be using those funds for diversified purposes. So when amount is actually transferred or actually credited to the account of the borrower for various purposes, for using them or for um, for investing them for various purposes in his business, such kind of financial services, we call them as fund-based financial services. Whereas the quite contrary, and we have also studied what are the various types of fund-based financial services: equipment leasing, that is lease finance, hire purchase system, discounting of bills, venture capital, housing finance, factoring, mutual funds. Then the second category, whatever we have learned, is non-fund based financial services. Now, this non-fund based means under the non-fund based financial services, there is no involvement of transfer of money or actual disbursement of loan amount to the borrower. That means funds will not be granted from that institution, but they will extend the support for guaranteeing the loan taken by the borrower. Whatever the loan that is being sanctioned to the borrower, for that, these non-fund based or fee-based financial institutions will give the surety to the lender. Such kind of services, we call them as fee-based or non-fund based financial services. And yesterday we have also observed that, understood what are the various ways in which the fee-based financial services are extended in our country. That is through merchant banking. We call them with different names. That is merchant banking or the merchant bankers, credit rating, custodial services, loan syndication, securitization. All these will fall under the category of non-fund based or fee-based financial services. And also we have studied what are the challenges that have been facing by this financial service sector. Now today, let us learn a deep insight into the various fund-based and non-fund-based services. Yesterday, we have just learned the meaning of them. Today, we are going to learn them in detail. So, we'll start with the first concept, lease financing. This is one of the most familiar kind of fund-based financial services extended in our country by various banks and financial institutions. Now, let us come to the meaning of this lease financing. So, leasing is a process whereby one company or a small entrepreneur, or it can be a medium scale business firm, which does not have the capacity to buy the physical assets for its business. That means they may require huge machinery, or they may require certain fixed assets for which they actually do not have the capacity to invest. అంటే వాళ్ళ దగ్గర డబ్బులు లేకపోవచ్చు, or they may feel that అవి కొనాలంటే we require I mean lakhs and crores of rupees. Why to block that amount? They may have different concepts and different views over this. So instead of buying a machinery or blocking the money or blocking the working capital, or they may not have the capacity to invest on those machinery. Such companies or such business firms generally take the physical assets or those machineries, tools, heavy equipment, whatever they require for running their business. They generally approach the large scale business concerns, multi firms and a multinational firms which are strongly settled in the market. From there, they will take the equipment on lease basis for certain period of time. Lease basis means on rent basis. That the period may be for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, like this. So they'll make a lease agreement with the lender. So both the lender and borrower, both of them will sign the lease agreement for how much period the lease agreement will be continuing, and what is the portion of rent that the borrower has to pay to the lender, and what are the other terms and conditions of closing that particular contract or winding up that particular contract. So on all these, they will make the agreement, and this borrower company will take the physical control of those machines or those particular assets, keep them in their company or their firm, and after using it for certain period, basing on the year they fixed, number of years they fixed, they will again return back to its original owner. Such kind of agreements or such kind of financing facility, you call it as lease financing. Now the question is, in a lease finance transaction, it is basically purely a commercial contract or commercial agreement, purely for the purpose of rent, for the purpose of generating revenue. So suppose Bharati requires huge machinery to be set up in her industry, but Bharati does not have the capacity to buy that machinery. What she did, she approached um, Nagamani to buy that or to take that machinery on rent basis for a period of 3 years. Nagamani agreed for this, and she fixed a certain rent amount for so and so period. So that means every periodically, Bharati will be taking the control of that machinery, fix it in her industry, use it for 2 years or 3 years, whatever the agreement. Later, Bharati, for these 3 years or 2 years, she has to pay regular rent to Nagamani. Later, when she feels that now this machine is of no use to my company, or if the time of the lease agreement has come down or closed up, is to be closed out, then she will return back that machinery to Nagamani. Such kind of agreement, you call it as lease agreement. Now the question is, what is the benefit that goes to both the parties? The first benefit, so, before learning the benefits, please understand that the two parties in a lease agreement, you call them as lessor and lessee. Lessor and lessee. Who is lessor? Who is lessee? Now, Bharati will be called as lessee. Because she is receiving the services of the equipment or the machinery from Nagamani. Nagamani stands in the position of owner of the assets. So she will be called as lessor. So the agreement what they entered, you call it as lease agreement. That means in a lease agreement, there are two parties. One is the owner of the asset. The second party is borrower of the asset. Owner of the asset, we'll call them as lessor, and the borrower of the asset is called as lessee. Now let us come to what is the benefit both the parties are deriving with a lease contract. Now, as we have studied that, leasing is a kind of agreement wherein a borrower need not to possess the machinery outside. That means Borrower need not to buy the machinery. Without buying, he will become the owner of the equipment for certain period of time, complete his work and return back to it. That means without making huge investments in a machinery, he has become the owner, he used the asset, his work is completed and he has returned back. He'll be going to return back. That means Bharati need not to block her amount or money in purchasing the asset. Second thing, suppose Bharati does not have the capacity to buy the asset, what she has to do? If it is mandatory for her to buy, then she will go for huge loans from banks to buy that asset. Again, that repayment of loan on that asset is a burden for Bharati. But by making a lease agreement, Bharti's burden has come down. She did not to buy. She did not to take a loan for that buying of machinery. She need not to feel the burden of repayment. Simply, what she can do, she can use somebody's asset, somebody's property, somebody's equipment. You are using it for certain period of time, enjoying the benefits of that equipment by paying simple amount of rent, which is not that much huge burden for you, and you will return back to its owner, so that your maintenance cost will also come down. Such kind of, that is the benefit what the lessee is deriving. Now the question is, what is the benefit or the advantage that goes to lessor, that is Nagamani. Nagamani is the owner of the asset, and she has rented her machinery to Bharati. Now, suppose if it is for 2 years, so for next 2 years, Nagamani need not to spend any expenses on the maintenance of that machinery, because it is with Bharti. Bharti will take care of the maintenance during that period. Second thing, Nagmani will be getting regular revenue out of it. That means every periodically she'll be getting rent from Bharati. So that means she's generating some kind of revenue from on it. Third thing, if the asset is with Nagamani only, who may know whether she may use that machinery in these 2 years or she may keep it aside. That means she may feel that anyhow, if that machinery is with me, I'm not using it much. If I rent it for somebody, at least I will get a regular revenue. So this way, both the parties are put to certain kind of benefits on both the sides. And this is how the lease agreements have uh, gained lot of popularity in the market. Now, in today's world, in today's financial market, if you observe, most of the entrepreneurs, whether it is small scale entrepreneurs or medium scale entrepreneurs, they're not, spending their money on purchasing of these assets, equipment, machines, and all, because that will be a huge capital investment for them, and their money will get blocked. By this, their working capital may become very difficult for them. So instead of that, if they opt for leasing finance facility, majority of their burden will come down. So this is what the benefit, what the business firms are deriving. Am I clear with the advantages of lease finance?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Another important thing is, when the business for lease finance is increase in the market, large firms, so as we studied, medium and small firms, they do not spend money on buying of their equipments. Very rare phenomena they'll buy. Most of the times, for large scale enterprises, they have no option. They have to buy the machinery because they are going to exist forever. Their production is very high, so they cannot go for leasing and all. So what they will do is, all the time, what they do, they will get the updated machinery. They are going to buy the updated machinery because they know that they are going to give their machinery for rent. So, to expecting lot of revenue generation with lease agreements, what these large firms will do, they keep on trying to updating their machines, equipment all the time to keep it in a very good condition, to focus much on its maintenance, upgrading the asset value so that it will have more and more demand in the market, and thereby they can generate more amount of revenue by leasing that kind of machines. So this is another benefit what the lessor will derive from the lease agreement here. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Next, let us learn what are the limitations of this lease financing. Now, as we are studying that lease under during the lease time, the owner of the asset does not have the right to take back his assets from the borrower, because there is a fixed time period. Until the fixed time period is completed, they cannot go and demand or ask for giving that asset back. That is the first thing. Now, suppose in Nagamani and Bharati's example, if you observe, if Nagamani is in need of that machinery during the period of lease agreement, what is the option left for her? She will not, she won't be left with any option, because she cannot demand her equipment back before the completion of lease agreement from Bharati. That means she has to forego her, her business opportunities during that time. Another thing is, when she generally lease agreements will be for a minimum period of 1 year, minimum. Maximum can be 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 8 years, like that. Now, during this period, the assets will be physically handed over to the borrower. Now, because it was Nagamani's own property, because she invested the money, she will take utmost care of maintenance of her asset. But because it has been rented to Bharati may not have that much interest in the maintenance and taking care of that asset. By this, what happened? The life of the asset may come down. That means Nagamani యూజ్ చేసినంత కేర్ఫుల్ గా భారతి యూజ్ చేయకపోవచ్చు. By this, what happened? There might be certain damages that may arise to the physical property of the asset, physical appearance of the asset. Chinna chinna nuts podamo, screws, or small damages may arise while working on the machinery. And as much care, as much importance, as much delicately that is being used by Nagamani may not be used by Bharati during the lease time. This, this may cause lot of damage to the quality of the asset. So by that, what happens? Because the maintenance is not proper, because the usage is not in a was not made in a right way, the life of the asset may come down. And as you know, the assets are very expensive, very costly. Now, once we invest, we invest a huge amount on them with lot of expectations. But by continuous usage, if the quality of the asset is coming down, its life is going to be affected. This may cause lot of damage to the owner. This is one of the major limitation that has been observed in lease financing. Now, the cost of financing may also be very expensive. As we were studying that Nagamani has purchased it by spending huge amount of money. Now, she might have gone for a loan or something from a bank or any other institution to buy it. But the revenue, what she is getting in the form of lease rent may not be sufficient to pay the EMI of that asset. That may also happen because she rented to Bharati, but whatever the rent Bharati is paying to Nagamani, that may not be sufficient for Nagamani to clear the debt and to clear the loan of that particular machine from the bank. This may also happen. So there are consequences. These are all presumptions. That means it may happen like this. So this kind of limitations we may encounter while we are engaged with the lease finance agreements. And another important thing is for other kind of financial services, there are certain rules, norms, regulations. But when it comes to lease financing, there is no exclusive law or there are no exclusive rules and regulations that have been framed for lease financing agreements. It all depends upon the mutual understanding of the lessor and lessee. ఏదైనా వాళ్ళిద్దరి అండర్స్టాండింగ్ మీద డిపెండ్ అయ్యే ఉంది కానీ there are no hard and fast rule or there is no exclusive law which is talking about or which is emphasizing on the rules and regulations of lease financing. So this is also one of the disadvantage or limitation of lease financing. And suppose if Bharati wants to discontinue the lease agreement in between. Suppose, take for example, Bharati is running a small business, so she leased some of the assets of Nagamani. But after taking them on lease, slowly the business of Bharati is coming down. So Bharti felt like she's not generating much, she's not producing much of the products with the help of that machine, but the rent has on that asset has become burden to Bharti. And if suppose Bharti want to go for pre-closure of lease agreement, then she has to pay huge penalty to the lessor, that is Nagamani, owner of the asset. So this is also one of the limitation that has been encountered in lease finance agreements. Am I clear? Now,
Clear, ma'am.
okay. Now let us come to what are the various types of lease agreements. Now, types of lease agreements. There are basically 4 categories of lease contracts which have been made, which are usually been opted in the market, that is in the financial market. Starting with the first one, financial lease agreement. Financial lease agreement is a kind of lease agreement where the owner of the asset agrees to transfer the property and the ownership rights of this asset to the borrower on the winding up of or on the expiry of lease agreement. Suppose in the example Bharati and Nagamani, they both made lease agreement for 2 years. Now, at the time of making lease agreement, Nagamani made a what do you call had a discussion with Bharti that the period is 2 years. Now, after 2 years, I am going to transfer that property on your name for certain rate of nominal, certain nominal cost of the asset. Because Nagamani might be under an impression that after using it for certain period, that quality or the life of asset may go, or Nagamani is going for some other business plan. So she does not have an idea of taking back that asset from Bharti again. Because of various reasons, Nagamani, while making lease agreement, she stated in the agreement that after the completion of lease agreement, the title of that asset will be transferred to Bharati at a nominal cost. అంటే not the higher or the lower, but at a nominal cost, she is going to transfer. But for this 2 years, Bharati has to pay the rent to Nagamani. After 2 years, Nagamani will transfer the ownership rights to Bharati for certain nominal cost. Such kind of lending or such kind of agreements, you call them as financial lease. That means here under financial lease, owner is giving an option to the borrower to buy the asset. On the expiry of lease agreement, Bharti may feel that why should I give it back? Let me only buy it because it is working out very nicely for me or generating good revenue for me. So Bharti or Nagamani, either of them may opt for uh, this benefit, and they may transfer the ownership right or title deeds on the name of the borrower. This kind of lease agreements, you call them as financial lease. Now, quite contrary, quite opposite to this kind of financial lease is operational lease. Under operational lease, Nagamani is no way going to transfer the title of the property. Once the lease period expires, she will insist Bharti to give her asset back, to return back her asset. That means the asset must be returned back to the original owner on the expiry of lease agreement. That kind of agreements, you call them as operational lease. And that means you are giving only limited rights to use that asset. And another thing is, during this period, the maintenance of the asset, the maintenance cost of the asset will fall on the owner of the asset, but not on the borrower of the asset, because she has stipulated certain conditions in the contract. So lessee or Bharti is not going to take the burden or expenditure of maintenance of that asset. The maintenance of the asset will fall on Nagamani only. Every periodically, they may send one mechanic or the one who can repair that machine or who can keep that machine in a right condition. Such kind of leasing, you call them as operational lease. Now, the next category is sale and lease back. Sale and lease back. Now, Bharti is in need of the asset. Nagamani is in need of money. Bharti is in need of asset. Nagamani is in need of money. So Bharti approached Nagamani for lease. But Nagamani version is she doesn't want to lease because she need huge amount as of now. పెద్ద ఒక లంసమ్ అమౌంట్ కావాలి. రెంట్ ఏమో పీరియాడికలీ మంత్లీ వస్తుందో క్వార్టర్లీ వస్తుందో ఇయర్లీ వస్తుందో తెలియదు. సో వాట్ షీ డిసైడెడ్, షీ వాంట్స్ టు సెల్ దట్ asset to Bharti at a reasonable rate only, but on a condition that after selling it to Bharti, she wants Bharti to lease it back to Nagamani. That means she is selling the asset, but on a condition that నేను నీకు అమ్మేస్తాను కానీ కొన్ని రోజులు నేను I'll use it as a lease. I'll use it on lease for certain period, then I'll return back your asset. Such kind of lease agreements, you call them as sale and lease back. Then the last category is direct leasing. Direct leasing, wherein the borrower will not approach already existing customer or the one who is using it. Borrower directly approaches the manufacturer and makes a lease agreement. That means the one who has originally manufactured it, with them we are making the lease agreement stating that we want your equipment for certain period of time for lease purpose. That kind of leasing, you call it as direct leasing. Am I clear with various types of lease?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
So we are done with lease finance, and let us learn what is this hire purchase system. Hire purchase system. Now, as we have studied that hire purchase system is a kind of financial rendering financial services where you can buy an what do you call an equipment or a physical asset or goods on installment basis, but the ownership of that asset will be derived only on the repayment of entire loan amount along with interest, or that is after the as per the agreement, that is what do you call on the payment of last installment only. That means it is just like installment. Under installment, what happens? Installment system ki hire purchase system ki basic difference ఏంటంటే under installment system you will make the down payment and buy a product. Rest of the amount you are going to pay it on monthly basis on EMI installments. Monthly installments you are going to pay it. But after paying the down payment, immediately that property will be transferred on your name. It can be two-wheeler, four-wheeler, anything. But in hire purchase system, what happens? You will make the down payment, take the physical property of the goods. You will be using the goods, and remaining amount you will be paying it on monthly installments. But only on the payment of last installment, after the last installment is being paid, the property will be transferred on your name. That means the title deeds of the property will be transferred only on repayment of entire loan amount along with interest on last installment, after the receipt of last installment. Such kind of methodology of rendering the financial services, you call them as hire purchase system. This system is being regulated and acts as per the law of Hire Purchase Act 1972. In the year of 1972, this act has been introduced, so that why the question you may get is why when there is installment system, why the hire purchase system has come into the market? Because under installment system, what happening, the banks or financial institutions have encountered one major issue, that is there are many customers who make the down payment, take the physical property of the goods, and in the installment, what happens? Ownership will be transferred immediately. Later on, many a times they may not pay or complete the payment of remaining balances on time. By this, the list of NPAs, non-performing assets, have risen with commercial banks and financial institutions. So to avoid this, what they are doing, they're keeping the ownership rights in their control. Once the total loan amount is cleared, on the payment of last installment, the ownership rights will be given to the borrower. So this is one of the concept that is introduced by banks and financial institutions so as to avoid or reduce their NPS burden. And this is going to act as per the Hire Purchase Act. That means whatever the rules, norms, regulations are there for hire purchase agreements, that we are following them as per the Hire Purchase Act of 1972. Now, under this hire purchase agreement, we have two parties. One is hirer and hiree. Hirer means the one who purchases the assets. Hiree means the one who is facilitating the purchase of asset. That is banks or financial institutions. Now let us understand what are the rights that the hirer and a borrower will have under hire purchase system. Please look at the screen here, and also please make the habit of yes, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. There is some issue with the network, so I am logging in from my phone instead of laptop. Let me share the screen. Without screen, is it okay for you?
Not possible to share. It is
Just a
okay,
minute.
ma'am. No issues.
I am trying to download the on phone.
Okay, ma'am.
This is not supporting on my phone. Meanwhile, I'll explain the concept. Is that okay for you?
Okay, ma'am.
Once the Wi-Fi is back, I'll share the screen with you. Okay. What we were studying about the rights of the hirer. Now, hirer is a person who is the borrower of the asset, and the hiree is the one who is the lender of the asset. Now, he possesses certain rights in the hire agreement. One is to buy the goods at any time by giving notice to the owner and paying the balance of the hire purchase price at price less at rebate. Now here, now what are the rights of the hirees? First of all, the hirer can use the asset by paying periodical installments to the hiree. That is one thing. That means though the property is not being transferred on his name, but he gets the eligibility or right to use that asset even without even without getting transferred the ownership rights on his name. That is the important thing. Second thing is the hirer is paying only the initial amount, that is by a small down payment he might be making for it. Later he'll be utilizing the assets. Later he'll be by paying small amount he is deriving the benefit of huge benefit of utilizing that asset. So this is also one of the privilege what the hirer is going to gain on this. Now, more than rights, there are certain duties which the hirer has to uh, uh, oblige, that means follow during the hire purchase system. One is to pay the hire installments regularly. If suppose he does not pay the hire installment regularly, then yesterday we have learned that civil rating will be affected, and the lender may not have a good impression on the hirer. So next time when you want to go for any kind of hire agreements and all, the bank or financial institution may not support you in the way they have supported you initially. And another duty is, though he is not the title owner of the goods, but as long as he is using the goods, it is his responsibility to take reasonable care of all the goods in his control. It can be a two-wheeler, it can be a four-wheeler, it can be a machinery, anything, any good which is under his control to be, he has to take utmost care of those goods. Another important thing is the hirer has to inform the place of the goods place where the goods have been stocked up. Suppose there are certain items which need lot of security and all. So periodically he should keep on informing the original owner of the goods where the possession of the goods is, where the goods have been kept during the time of using it. This is what the obligations or duties of the hirer. Hope I am clear with the hire agreement.
Yes, ma'am.
Next, we'll learn about another important concept of fund-based financing, that is venture capital. So this venture capital basically contains two words. One is venture, the other one is capital. So together we call it as venture capital. What does this word venture sounds? Venture literally means a course. Okay? Course or proceedings. You may write down running notes, ma. This venture capital is derived from two important words. One is venture and the other one is capital. Venture means course or proceeding. Course or proceeding, and it also sounds another meaning that the outcome is uncertain. ది అవుట్కమ్ ఈజ్ అన్సర్టన్. అంటే వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్లో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేసినప్పుడు వీ కెనాట్ ప్రెడిక్ట్ వెదర్ వీల్ గెట్ ఎ ప్రాఫిట్ ఆర్ అ లాస్. ద ప్రొడక్షన్ ఆర్ ది అనాలిసిస్ ఆఫ్ దట్ బిజినెస్ ఈజ్ వెరీ వెరీ uncertain. So basically, the venture implies involving something risk or the outcome is uncertain. And the term capital, resource. The capital ante enti? The amount or the resources what you need to start an enterprise. అయితే capital can be in the form of cash, it can be in the form of building. ఏ form లో అయినా ఉండొచ్చు, మీకు తెలుసు కదా. Whenever we are starting a business, we will come with capital. That capital can be in the form of money or cash, or it can be in the form of asset. So venture capital means outcome of an uncertain investment. Outcome of certain uncertain investment. The investment you made in venture capitals is highly risky business, where you cannot predict whether you are going to gain on it or are you going to lose on it. Such kind of investment of services, financial services, you call them as venture capital services. Many business firms, many banks, many financial institutions are coming forward to encourage business firms who are looking for long-term projects with high-rated investments. Nina cheppan kada example, we have studied about Aparna Constructions. E construction real estate business is very unpredictable. There are chances that to construct those apartments, they are going for loan syndication. And no banks mundukochi support chesta gani, they cannot go for such constructions. Again, what happens after constructing? First of all, they have to sold out all the flats. Flats sale aite gani, they cannot get the revenue, they cannot make the payment. So it is highly risky one. There are certain apartments which have been standing still without selling out for a long period of time. Many people who invested in a real estate business, construction business, they lost in the market. At the same time, there are few group of people who gained more or multiplied their investments in real estates. కొంతమందికి ఏమో మల్టిప్లై అవుతుంది వాళ్ళ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్స్, అంటే పెరుగుతూనే ఉంటుంది. కొంతమందికి ఏమో అసలు ఇట్ విల్ బికమ్ జీరో. సో సచ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ హ్యూజ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్స్ ఈజ్ ఆల్వేస్ ఏ risky concept, and that kind of investments you call them as the venture capital business. Am I clear? Am I clear with the concept?
Yes, ma'am.
So it is basically a risky investments, but many private firms, more than government firms, many private firms are coming forward to lend loans for venture capital investment. And coming to the characteristic features of venture capital. Basically, venture capital investment is a long-term investment. So it is capital in nature. And a long-term projects ni you call them as capital nature. Capital kind of investment. Revenue kaadu, capital item. And investments which are made or undertaken by venture capitals are highly risky projects with an objective of earning high rate of return. ఎందుకు ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు మరి? రిస్క్ అని తెలుసు, బట్ స్టిల్ దే ఆర్ కమింగ్ ఫార్వర్డ్ ఫర్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్. వై? వాట్ ఈస్ దేర్ ఇంట్రెస్ట్ బిహైండ్ దిస్ మీన్స్? బికాస్ what do you call, the return whatever they are going to derive on that risky projects is very very high. So because the return is high, they are dare enough to take the risk. Now another important characteristic of venture capital is, apart from providing capital and money or in the form of cash, they also take up certain activities like management of the assisted firm. That means what do you call, management of the asset means they take certain responsibility on behalf of the borrower. That means they may recommend to certain people or certain individuals to buy the flats. Okay, so in so constructions, we are the one who has lent the capital. My investments in the we help them for investment. Their projects are very high, very interesting. Their flats are very good. That way, they may promote the business of the borrower. That kind of support is also being extended by the venture capital institutions. Now, another important thing is, as we were studying that venture capital investment is highly risky investment, and they will not get back their loan amount immediately because the returns that they are going to derive is long term. అంటే ఈ రోజు లోన్ ఇచ్చేసి రేపటి నుండి రీపేమెంట్ చేయాలి లేకపోతే నెక్స్ట్ మంత్ నుండి రీపేమెంట్ చేయాలని అడిగే ఛాన్స్ ఉండదు వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ కి, బికాస్ దే నో దట్ రిటర్న్స్ విల్ టేక్ టైం. అంటే ఎవరైతే వాళ్ళ దగ్గర లోన్ తీసుకున్నాడో వాడు తొందరగా ఇవ్వడని ముందే తెలుసు, బట్ స్టిల్ దే ఆర్ గివింగ్ ఇట్, దే ఆర్ బీయింగ్ లెండింగ్ ఇట్. వై, వాట్ ఈస్ ద రీజన్ బిహైండ్ దిస్ ఇస్, and because of this reason, what the venture capital institutions will do, they will continuously involve in the business activities of the borrower. బారోవర్ ఎవరైతే వీళ్ళ దగ్గర లోన్ తీసుకున్నాడో వాడి బిజినెస్ లో వీళ్ళు యాక్టివ్ గా ఇన్వాల్వ్ అయి ఉంటారు. బికాస్ దే హ్యావ్ టు నో వాట్ ఈస్ ద పొజిషన్ ఆఫ్ దట్ ఫెలోస్ బిజినెస్ వెరీ పీరియాడికల్లీ, so that they have to plan their own, make their own ideas to get back their loan amount very quickly. So they will take an active participation in the borrower's business. This is also one of the support they are extending for venture capital investors. Am I clear with this?
Yes, ma'am.
No. Now, let us understand what are the benefits that we derive with the venture capital investments. First and the foremost benefit that that an institution or a firm is deriving is a huge rate of return. And once if their business clicks and if they got familiar in the market, the goodwill that they are going to get back is very, very high. The goodwill that they are going to get back is very high goodwill and a manchi reputation ostundi. And another thing, what is the meaning of goodwill actually? Goodwill is an intangible asset. You are all familiar with this? Goodwill is an intangible asset. Goodwill means excess of profits over normal profits. అంటే నార్మల్ గా వచ్చే ప్రాఫిట్స్ కన్నా beyond expectations, you will derive the revenue on that investment. So once you take a dare step to go for venture capital financing, that means you are taking, it may take some time for you. Initially you may feel that you may feel threatened, you might be afraid of what do you call the investment initially. But in the long run, if you observe, the goodwill that is being gained by these venture capital institutions are very high. ఒక్కసారి వాళ్ళ ఐడియా క్లిక్ అయ్యి వాళ్ళ మార్కెట్ లో కనుక if their business runs out very well, then the borrowers, they themselves approach the venture capital institutions for their involvement in the business. So that kind of benefit what they are going to derive. అంటే వాళ్ళ goodwill, excess of profits over normal profits, you call it as goodwill. నార్మల్ గా వచ్చే ప్రాఫిట్స్ కన్నా ఎప్పుడైతే మీకు అడిషనల్ గా you start gaining revenues on that particular projects or investments, you call it as goodwill. So venture capital goodwill is always high. It is always in a positive note. because the projects are very risky, very time consuming, benefits కూడా అలాగే ఉంటాయి మనకి. That is what the venture capital financing is. Then let us come to what are the various methods of venture capital financing. Now, this venture capital financing is basically categorized into various types. One is equity financing. One is equity financing. What do you mean by equity? Equity means ownership rights. Equity means ownership rights. So when you are financing your borrower, venture financing of equity nature, if you are financing, that means you are giving them a loan for repayment on a long-term basis, that is all fine. But when you opt for equity financing, it indicates that you are asking or you are benefiting certain ownership rights in that particular business. That means when you purchase certain ownership rights of your borrower's business, that means what? That borrower's business is remaining in your control. Yes or no? If you are buying some ownership rights, అంటే నేను నీకు ఇంత పెద్ద లోన్ ఇస్తున్నాను కదా, ఎప్పుడు రికవర్ అవుతుందో తెలీదు, ఇవన్నీ ఉన్నాయి కాబట్టి యు ఆర్ డిమాండింగ్ సర్టన్ ఓనర్షిప్ ఈక్విటీ రైట్స్. దీనివల్ల ఏమవుతుంది? Now you have also become one of the part owner of your borrower's business. Am I clear? So once you become the part owner of your borrower's business, what does it indicate? It is indicating that the business is under your control. So once the business is under your control, you will have all sort of rights to be exercised on that particular business, where you will start fetching maximum capital gains on that business. That is what you call it as equity financing. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Then another one is conditional financing. Conditional financing. Now, conditional financing is one where... Yes, please mute your phones, ma. I am getting disturbance from your end. Please mute your phones. Okay. Conditional financing means where the venture capital institution will lend a loan on a condition that the amount will be repaid to the institution or to the bank. Borrower ko condition పెడుతుంది. ఏమని పెడుతుంది? You need to అది హ్యూజ్ కన్స్ట్రక్షన్ కే ఒక 5-6 years పడుతుంది. కన్స్ట్రక్షన్ అయిపోయాక అవి సేల్ చేసి రెవెన్యూ జనరేట్ అవ్వడానికి ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ టైం. దెన్ బ్యాంక్ మే ఇంపోజ్ సర్టన్ కండిషన్స్ దట్ అపార్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ అంటే మా ప్రిన్సిపల్ అమౌంట్ పే చేయడమే కాకుండా యూ నీడ్ టు రీపే సంథింగ్ ఇన్ రాయల్టీ. రాయల్టీ అంటే ఇట్ క్యాన్ బి 1 or 2 ఫ్లాట్స్ వాళ్ళ పైన కన్వర్ట్ చేసి ఇవ్వడము ఆన్ ది నేమ్స్ ఆఫ్ దోస్ బ్యాంక్స్. లైక్ దట్ వాట్ ఎవర్ ద రెవెన్యూ దే ఆర్ జనరేటింగ్, బారోవర్ ఏదైతే రెవెన్యూ జనరేట్ చేస్తున్నారో ఫ్రమ్ సేల్ ఆఫ్ దోస్ assets or from sale of that venture capital business, they have to pay something in return to the banks in the form of royalty. ఇలాంటి కండిషనల్ లోన్స్ కి ఏంటంటే నో ఇంట్రెస్ట్ విల్ బి పేడ్. అంటే హియర్ వాట్ ద బ్యాంక్ ఈస్ టెలింగ్, యూ నీడ్ నాట్ టు పే ఇంట్రెస్ట్, ప్రిన్సిపల్ అమౌంట్ along with some royalty return to us. That kind of conditional financing, you call it as conditional financing of venture capital. Third category is ఎర్లీ స్టేజ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ అంటారు దీన్ని. ఎర్లీ స్టేజ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్. నౌ దిస్ ఎర్లీ స్టేజ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ లో 3 కేటగిరీస్ ఉంటాయి, 3 steps in early stage financing. That means when your borrower is starting up, ఒక స్టార్ట్అప్ కంపెనీ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నాడు, రిస్కీ ప్రాజెక్ట్ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నాడు. హీ స్టార్టింగ్ ఎ రిస్కీ ప్రాజెక్ట్, ఏ స్టార్ట్అప్ కంపెనీ. ఓకే, ఫర్ హిమ్ you are going to lend the loan in 3 different stages. Those 3 different stages లో ఇచ్చేదాన్ని ఎర్లీ స్టేజ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ అంటారు. Now let us learn what are those 3 different stages. The first stage is stage one is seed financing. Seed, SEED, seed financing. Now seed financing లో ఏంటంటే ఇనీషియల్ గా దిస్ ఇస్ ద స్టార్ట్అప్ కంపెనీ విచ్ ఇస్ కమింగ్ అప్ విత్ అన్ ఐడియా ఆఫ్ వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్. ఒక పెద్ద ప్రాజెక్ట్ స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నాం అనే ఐడియాతో అప్రోచ్ అయ్యారు. Now for them, these banks and financial institutions, first they will give small amount of capital for testing an idea into the business. That means first they will give only small amount to that borrower, then they'll start observing the business, how it is clicking in the market. They will observe it. This is step one. Now step two lo em jarugutadante, this is the stage of initiating commercial production and marketing. Now ఇక్కడ ఏంటంటే ఇనీషియల్ గా ఫస్ట్ ఏమో ఆఫీస్ సెటప్ చేసుకొని స్టార్ట్ చేసుకోవడానికి ఇస్తారు, దట్ ఈస్ సీడ్ క్యాపిటల్. సీడ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ అయిపోయాక దే విల్ గివ్ స్టార్ట్అప్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్, ఫస్ట్ స్టేజ్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్. Now whatever the capital they are giving in first stage of financing, that is used for starting the production in the company. ప్రొడక్షన్ చేసుకోవచ్చు, మార్కెటింగ్ చేయడానికి ఎంత ఖర్చు అవుతుందో ఆ అమౌంట్ ఇచ్చేదాన్ని యూ కాల్ ఇట్ యాజ్ స్టార్ట్అప్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్. And the third stage under this is and the next stage under this is it is a stage where product is introduced in the market, but it does not earn any profits till now. అంటే ప్రోడక్ట్ మార్కెట్ లోకి పోయింది, ఇట్ ఈస్ గోయింగ్ టు బి సోల్డ్ అవుట్, స్లోగా సేల్స్ జరుగుతున్నాయి, బట్ రెవెన్యూస్ ఆర్ నాట్ గెటింగ్, వీఆర్ నాట్ గెటింగ్ ఎనీ రెవెన్యూస్ ఆన్ ఇట్, అంటే ప్రాఫిట్స్ రావట్లేదు. అప్పుడు ఏం చేస్తుంది, ప్రాఫిట్స్ రాకపోతే మరి దట్ బిజినెస్ విల్ బి ఇంటూ లాసెస్. సో వాట్ దిస్ వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్ బ్యాంక్స్ విల్ డూ, దే విల్ ప్రొవైడ్ అడిషనల్ క్యాపిటల్ అట్ దట్ పర్టికులర్ స్టేజ్. They will provide additional capital. ఎందుకంటే బికాస్ దట్ బిజినెస్ ఈజ్ అ స్టార్ట్అప్ బిజినెస్, పైగా హ్యూజ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెట్టేశారు, హ్యూజ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెట్టి స్టార్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు. ప్రొడక్షన్ అయిపోయింది, ప్రొడక్ట్స్ ఆర్ అవుట్ ఇన్ ద మార్కెట్, బట్ దే ఆర్ అనేబుల్ టు గెట్ ద రెవెన్యూ. ప్రొడక్ట్స్ సేల్ అవుతున్నాయి కానీ బట్ నాట్ యాజ్ ఎక్స్పెక్టెడ్. సో రెవెన్యూస్ దే ఆర్ నాట్ గెటింగ్, బట్ దే నీడ్ వర్కింగ్ క్యాపిటల్. సాలరీస్ పే చేయాలి, రెంట్స్ పే చేయాలి, మెయింటెనెన్స్ ఎక్స్పెన్సెస్, all these have to be borne. Then what the bank will do, it will observe the condition of that business firm. Again, they will introduce some additional capital so that to meet their working capital requirements. ఆ పెద్ద ఫర్మ్ కి వర్కింగ్ క్యాపిటల్ సరిపోవట్లేదు, మెయింటెనెన్స్ ఖర్చు సరిపోవట్లేదు, కాబట్టి దిస్ బ్యాంక్స్ విల్ లెండ్ ది అడిషనల్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫర్ what do you call వర్కింగ్ క్యాపిటల్ రిక్వైర్మెంట్స్. నౌ దాని తర్వాత వచ్చే స్టేజ్ నే లేటర్ స్టేజ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ అంటారు. అంటే దిస్ ఇస్ ద ఫైనల్ స్టేజ్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్. ఈ ఫైనల్ స్టేజ్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ లో వాట్ దే విల్ డూ ఇస్ దే విల్ స్టార్ట్ గివింగ్ మనీ ఫర్ ది ఎక్స్పాన్షన్ ఆఫ్ ది బిజినెస్. They will start giving money for the expansion of the business. And because they supported for additional working capital and all, this business is running properly, gaining good profits, చక్కగా రన్ అవుతుంది, ప్రాఫిట్స్ లోకి వస్తుంది. Again, to encourage them, what they are doing, they will support additional capital. ఇంకా కొంచెం అమౌంట్ ఇస్తారు. ఎందుకు ఇస్తున్నారు ఈ అమౌంట్? సో దట్ this business should move forward. Everything is looking positive after coming into the market. Things are going very fine. బిజినెస్ ఈస్ గెటింగ్ గుడ్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ రెవెన్యూ, ఇట్ ఈస్ జనరేటింగ్, చక్కగా రన్ అవుతుంది కాబట్టి వి విల్ సపోర్ట్ మోర్. సో అడిషనల్ క్యాపిటల్ దే విల్ గివ్ ఫర్ ది ఎక్స్పాన్షన్ యాక్టివిటీస్ ఆఫ్ ది బిజినెస్. కొత్త బ్రాంచెస్ ఓపెన్ చేయడము, ఆర్ ఎగ్జిస్టింగ్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ డిఫికల్టీస్ ని ఓవర్కమ్ చేయడానికో, ఉన్న డెట్స్ ఉన్న లోన్స్ ని క్లియర్ చేయడానికో, లేకపోతే ఇంకా టు ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ అనదర్ ప్రోడక్ట్ ఇన్ దట్ కంపెనీ, ఎనీ న్యూ ప్రోడక్ట్ ఇంట్రడ్యూస్ చేయాలి, లేదంటే న్యూ బ్రాంచ్ ఓపెన్ చేయాలి. ఫర్ ఆల్ దిస్ దే విల్ అసిస్ట్ ది ఫైనాన్స్ సో యాజ్ టు డెవలప్ దట్ పర్టిక్యులర్ కంపెనీ. సో this kind of financing you call it as later stage financing అంటారు. ఫస్ట్ స్టేజ్ వచ్చేసి ఎర్లీ స్టేజ్ ఆఫ్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్. సెకండ్ స్టేజ్ లో వర్కింగ్ క్యాపిటల్ ఫైనాన్సింగ్ ఇస్తారు ఫర్ ది మెయింటెనెన్స్ ఆఫ్ దట్ బిజినెస్. థర్డ్ స్టేజ్ లో ఏంటి, ప్రాఫిట్స్ అన్ని బాగా వస్తున్నాయి, చక్కగా సెట్ అయిపోయింది కంపెనీ, దాన్ని ఇంకా ఎంకరేజ్ చేయడానికి టు గెట్ మోర్ అండ్ మోర్ ప్రాఫిట్స్, టు మేక్ మోర్ అండ్ మోర్ అడ్వర్టైజ్మెంట్స్, టు సాల్వ్ దేర్ ఎగ్జిస్టింగ్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్, or to introduce new branches, or to expand new products. Again, additional amount will be lent. That is called later stage financing. ఇలా వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్ లో డు నాట్ బి అండర్ ఎ ప్రిజంప్షన్ దట్ మొత్తం మనీ వాడి దగ్గర పెట్టి కూర్చుంటారని అనుకోకండి. దే విల్ నెవర్ డూ దట్. వెంచర్ క్యాపిటల్ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్స్ వాట్ దే విల్ డూ, స్టెప్ బై స్టెప్ దే విల్ రెండర్ దేర్ సర్వీసెస్. ఫస్ట్ ఓపెనింగ్ కి స్టార్ట్అప్ కి ఇస్తారు, దెన్ ఫర్ ప్రొడక్షన్ అండ్ మార్కెటింగ్ దే విల్ గివ్, then for maintenance of working capital they'll give, then they'll give for expansion of the business. Like this, venture capital institutions are encouraging large firms, many business startup entrepreneurs, by supporting them financially at different levels of their requirements. Is it quite good or not? Is it quite encouraging? Yes, are you all with me?
Yes, ma'am.
So this is about the
Yes,
lending
ma'am.
behavior. This is about the lending behavior of venture capital, stages of venture capital financing. Then we'll come to the next term, factoring. Factoring. Now, we have learned already about the introduction of what is factor and all in the last class. Again, we'll have a short revise on it. The word factor is derived from a Latin word, facier, F-A-C-E-R-E, facier, which means to make or to do, or to get the things done. To make, to do, or to get the things done. అంటే factoring refers to selling the receivables by a firm to another party. Yesterday I was giving the example of Nagamani and Bharti. Nagamani has purchased some 15,000 worth of goods from Bharati on credit basis. అంటే అమౌంట్ ఇమీడియట్ ఇవ్వలేదు, 2 months తర్వాత 3 months తర్వాత పే చేస్తానని ప్రామిస్ చేసి తీసుకుంది. Now what these factoring service institutions will do, they will buy all the receivables. అంటే ఈ క్రెడిట్ రిసీవబుల్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో అవన్నీ కూడా భారతి దగ్గర నుండి కొనేసుకున్నారు వాళ్ళు. అంటే అమౌంట్ ఈ సెటిల్ టు భారతి. నౌ there is no contract between Bharti and Nagamani, because Bharti కట్టాల్సిన లోన్ నాగమణి ఇప్పుడు ఎవరికి కట్టాలి, దట్ బ్యాంక్ షీ has to pay. This kind of financial rendering of services to the borrowers, to the needy businessmen, you call it as factoring services. It is an agreement in which the receivables are sold by a firm to the factor. Factor ante it can be a bank, it can be a financial institution. Middleman. Factor means intermediary or middleman. వాడు ఏం చేస్తాడు, ఎవరికైతే భారతి లాంటి వాళ్ళు చాలా మంది ఉంటారు మార్కెట్ లో, వాళ్ళందరి దగ్గర వాళ్ళకి రావాల్సిన అప్పులయ్యి బిల్స్ అన్ని కలెక్ట్ చేసేసుకొని దే విల్ పర్చేస్ they will clear that amount to the sellers. Later, they will try to collect it from the buyer. It is purely a commercial business activity. That means it is an activity of converting receivables into cash. తర్వాత ఏం చేసుకుంటారు ఈ రిసీవబుల్స్ అన్ని దే ఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు కలెక్ట్ ఇట్ ఫ్రమ్ ద borrowers. Now let us understand or learn what is the process of this factoring. ఎట్లా చేస్తారు, in what way it is going to work in the market. Suppose, let us take an example. Satish is the businessman. Okay, Satish is a businessman. Bharati has to pay some 1 lakh rupees to Satish for the purchase of goods. Nagamani has to pay some 3 lakhs of amount to Satish. Both. Nagamani has to pay 3 lakhs. Bharati has to pay 1 lakh rupees. So total amount to be received by Satish is how much now?
4 lakhs.
4 lakhs. Now, suppose there is a factor institution. There is one so-and-so bank, XYZ bank is there. This XYZ bank made an agreement with Satish that what are all the receivables నీకు నువ్వు క్రెడిట్ లో ఏవైతే అమ్మినవో ఆ రిసీప్ట్స్ అన్ని కలెక్ట్ చేసుకుంటారు. చేసుకొని దే విల్ డూ ద టోటల్ ఆఫ్ ద అమౌంట్ and they will immediately settle the cash. What is the total amount has to be received by Satish? Nagamani దగ్గర నుండి భారతి దగ్గర మొత్తం కలిపి 4 lakhs రావాలి. So 4 lakhs cash will be paid to Satish immediately by that concerned XYZ bank. It will pay the amount. But what is the total amount that the Satish has to recover? 4 lakhs recover చేసుకోవాలి. ఎప్పుడు అది 2 months తర్వాతో 3 months తర్వాతో. But when the factor bank is taking the invoices, as per their agreement, what they will do, they will pay around 80% of invoice values. Satish కి ఎంత ఇస్తాడు? 80% వరకు మాత్రమే ఇస్తారు. బికాస్ సతీష్ కి ఎప్పుడో 2-3 months తర్వాత రావాల్సిన అమౌంట్ ని ఇమీడియట్లీ దే ఆర్ పేయింగ్ ఇట్, బ్యాంక్ ఇచ్చేస్తుంది ఇమీడియట్ గా. అండ్ థర్డ్ థింగ్, సతీష్ విల్ ఆల్వేస్ బి రిస్కీ బికాస్ who may know, he may or may not be able to collect the money. Bharati దగ్గర నుండి నాగమణి దగ్గర నుండి he may not have the capacity to collect the money from them. There is no guarantee that Nagamani and Bharti sincerely repay the amount to Satish. So keeping all these doubts in mind, Satish agreed for the agreement raised by that factor institution. So what the factor institution will do? First, it will collect all invoices and receipts. All invoices, sale proceeds, sale details ఉండేదాన్ని invoices అంటారు. ఆ invoices అన్ని కలెక్ట్ చేసుకొని they will do the total. On the total of invoices, 80% of value will be paid immediately to Satish. 80% of the value will be paid immediately to Satish. And the balance amount is paid when factor collects complete amount due from the customers. A balance amount ఇంకెంత ఇవ్వాలి? Suppose 80% on 4 lakhs means 4 8s. How much it is?
3,20,000.
3,20,000.
3,20,000.
Yes, sir. 3,20,000 will be immediately paid by factor institution to Satish. ఇంకా 80,000 బ్యాలెన్స్ ఉంటుంది. ఆ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఎప్పుడు పే చేస్తారు? ఆ బ్యాలెన్స్ ఆఫ్ 20% దే హ్యావ్ టు పే టు Satish later. Now the question is, when the Satish will get that balance of 20% is after the bank collects the money from the debtors. Debtors ఎవరు ఇక్కడ? భారతి అండ్ నాగమణి ఆర్ debtors. బికాస్ వాళ్ళు ఎప్పుడో 2 months తర్వాత 3 months తర్వాత ఇస్తారు. ఆ 2-3 months తర్వాత they are going to collect that money from the what do you call ఈ factor institute వాళ్ళ నాగమణి అండ్ భారతి దగ్గర నుండి it will collect the money. and it is going to pay Satish. And here, this after payment, for rendering this kind of services, it will charge 10% of the invoices from Satish. అంటే ఈ పనంతా సతీష్ చేసుకోవాల్సింది సతీష్ కి బెనిఫిట్ చేయడానికి ఫ్యాక్టరీ ఇన్స్టిట్యూట్ చేసింది కాబట్టి ఇట్ ఈస్ గోయింగ్ టు చార్జ్ 10% as fees, 10% on invoices as fees from Satish. That means out of the total receivables of 100%, 10% వాళ్ళకి fee కడితే what is the benefit that Satish has got? How much percent?
10%.
Satish has received only 90%. Rest of 10% is being paid as fees to the factoring unit. Now you understood what is the benefit for both the parties?
Yes, ma'am.
సతీష్ కి ఏం బెనిఫిట్ వచ్చింది? ఎప్పుడో రావాల్సిన అమౌంట్ 80% గ్యారంటీగా వచ్చేసింది. ఆ రిమైనింగ్ 20% కూడా వచ్చింది. బట్ 10% he has to pay it as a fee to factoring institute. That means the mental burden, the burden of bad debts on Satish has come down. Satish కి టెన్షన్ లేదు, 80% అయితే వచ్చేసింది immediate cash లో. He is happy for that. Second thing, this factor institute business is doing this kind of activities. So if factor institute ki business, what is the benefit they derive? By doing this small activity, they were able to derive 10% of the invoices. As an investment ledu, without investment, without any extra burden or without involvement of any working capital and all, simply by sitting in the office and doing some kind of activity, they were able to get 10% of the invoices from each customer. So is it profitable to the banks or not?
Yes, ma'am. Profit.
ఈ ఫ్యాక్టరింగ్ సర్వీసెస్ చేయడం వల్ల బ్యాంక్స్ కి ఇలాంటి బెనిఫిట్స్ ఉన్నాయన్నమాట. సో హోప్ యూ ఆల్ అండర్స్టూడ్ ద మీనింగ్ ఆఫ్ ఫ్యాక్టరింగ్ సర్వీసెస్.
Yes, ma'am.
Now coming to the features or characteristics of factoring. Characteristics of factoring. Now if you observe, this factoring service అనేది purely financial nature. It is completely what do you call a commercial business, where it is involving converting the credit bills into cash. Both the parties are getting the benefit by this kind of business. Now, now a factor institute can be any financial institution. It can be a commercial bank or it can be any private finance organization which is engaged in rendering of all sort of financial services to the to its customers. Basically, this factor specializes in handling and collecting receivables. మీకు డౌట్ రావచ్చు, మేడం ఇంత రిస్క్ తీసుకొని ఫ్యాక్టర్స్ ఎందుకు ఈ పని చేస్తున్నారు అంటే, బికాస్ దే ఆర్ ఆల్రెడీ స్పెషలైజ్డ్ ఇన్ కలెక్టింగ్ ద రిసీవబుల్స్. అంటే వాళ్ళు ఆల్రెడీ ఈ బిజినెస్ లో ఉన్నారు కాబట్టి దే నో ఆల్ ద టాక్టిక్స్, how effectively they can collect the money from Bharati and Nagmani and so called many customers. అలాంటి కస్టమర్స్ దగ్గర నుండి ఎలా డబ్బులు రాబట్టాలి, ఎలా కలెక్ట్ చేయాలి అనేది దే ఆర్ ఎక్స్పర్ట్స్ ఇన్ దట్. సో దే డు నాట్ ఫైండ్ దట్ ఇట్ ఈస్ వెరీ రిస్కీ అండ్ హార్మ్ఫుల్ ఫర్ ద బిజినెస్. దట్ ఈస్ అనదర్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ ఫీచర్. Another thing is, factor is responsible for sales accounting, debt collection, because and protection from bad debts. Because ఈ సతీష్ లాంటి వాళ్ళకి ఒక గ్యారంటీ ఉంటుంది, ఏంటి, ఫ్యాక్టర్ రెస్పాన్సిబిలిటీ తీసుకున్నాడు అంటే ఇంకా నాకు లాస్ లేదు, బ్యాడ్ డెట్ లేదు, అంటే నేను ఇచ్చిన అప్పంతా నాకు సేఫ్ గా తిరిగి వస్తుంది అనే నమ్మకం సతీష్ కి ఉంటుంది. సో borrower feels that, the client feels that my money is always safe. అంటే ఐ మే నాట్ హ్యావ్ ద కెపాసిటీ టు కలెక్ట్ ఫ్రమ్ కస్టమర్స్, నేను అంత స్ట్రాంగ్ గా కలెక్ట్ చేయలేమునేమో. ఇఫ్ ఐ టేక్ ద సపోర్ట్ ఆఫ్ ఫ్యాక్టర్, దే విల్ కలెక్ట్ ఆన్ బిహాఫ్ ఆఫ్ మీ, సో ఐ కెన్ అవాయిడ్ ద ప్రాబ్లమ్ ఆఫ్ బ్యాడ్ డెట్స్. అది ఒక బెనిఫిట్ ఉంది ఫ్యాక్టరింగ్ బిజినెస్ లో. అండ్ It is a technique of receivables management. Receivables management అంటే టు సాల్వ్ ద ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ రిలేటింగ్ టు చాలా మంది బిజినెస్ ఫర్మ్స్ ఏం చేస్తుంటాయి, వేరే వాళ్ళకు క్రెడిట్ లో గూడ్స్ సప్లై చేసేసి దే విల్ బి ఫాలోయింగ్ ఇన్ టు లోన్స్ డెట్స్ అండ్ ఆల్. అలాంటి కంపెనీస్ ని అప్లిఫ్ట్ చేసి వాళ్ళకి సపోర్ట్ చేసి టు ఓవర్కమ్ దేర్ ఫైనాన్షియల్ క్రైసిస్ అండ్ ఆల్, దీస్ ఫ్యాక్టరింగ్ యూనిట్స్ ఆర్ సపోర్టింగ్ దెమ్ వెరీ స్ట్రాంగ్లీ. This is how these organizations are working for. Am I clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, the last concept is under this we need to study is relating to mutual funds. Now, what is a mutual fund? Mutual fund is a trust or a pool of savings of investors. Yesterday, we have studied that mutual fund institution collects money from all the savers. It will invest their money in portfolio investments. Ante it will diversify the money. Suppose a mutual fund institution is there, UTI undi. UTI has collected some 2 lakhs rupees in the form of savings from Bharti. భారతి దగ్గర ఒక 2 lakhs rupees సేవింగ్స్ ఉంటే అవి మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ లో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేసింది. మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ ఏం చేస్తాయి, దే ఆర్ గోయింగ్ టు break this 2 lakhs into different parts. You call it as portfolio diversification antaru. Portfolio investment or diversification of funds. This 2 lakhs rupees will be invested in different investment areas like 50,000 in shares, 50,000 in insurance, 50,000 in what do you call mutual funds, 50,000 in government bonds. Itla different investments petesai, and they will see to that the Bharti has invested 2 lakhs. At least she should get more revenue on it, more capital investment. Short period lo, we have to multiply her money and show to her. This kind of methodology or rendering of financial services, you call it as mutual funds. ఏ ఇన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అయితే, ఏ ఆర్గనైజేషన్ అయితే ఇలాంటి ఫెసిలిటీస్ రెండర్ చేస్తుందో, you call it as mutual funds. అండ్ బేసికలీ మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ ఎందుకు ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ చేశారంటే టు ఎంకరేజ్ సేవింగ్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ద పబ్లిక్ and to use these savings for large investors and to show maximum, to derive maximum returns. ఎవరైతే ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేశారో వాళ్ళకి మాక్సిమం రిటర్న్స్ రావడానికి ఈ మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ సపోర్ట్ చేస్తూ ఉంటాయన్నమాట. అండ్ అనదర్ థింగ్ ఇస్, ఇఫ్ యూ కీప్ యువర్ ఎంటైర్ మనీ in one place, the chances of risk are very high. So instead of that, mutual funds are investing your money in different areas, different securities, whereby your money is safe. And the loss in one aspect can be recovered from the profit or the gain in another securities. Another important feature of mutual fund is whoever has invested their money in mutual funds, they are going to derive certain tax benefits. Ante konni mutual funds schemes unnai. If you invest in those mutual fund schemes, you will be exempted from tax. That benefit, a tax benefit kosam, most of them will be interested to invest in mutual funds. One is tax benefit untundi. Second thing, your money is safe with them. You can expect higher rate of return. ఈ అమౌంట్ బ్యాంక్ లో పెడితే పెద్దగా బెనిఫిట్ ఉండదు. అదే నువ్వు ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్స్ లో పెడితే, మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ లో పెడితే, యూ విల్ డిరైవ్ హ్యూజ్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్స్. యువర్ మనీ విల్ గెట్ మల్టిప్లైడ్ ఓవర్ ఏ షార్ట్ పీరియడ్ ఆఫ్ టైం. And another important feature of this mutual funds is mutual funds are regulated by SEBI, Securities Exchange Board of India, is going to frame the rules and regulations for running and operating of these mutual fund institutions. Now, these mutual funds institutions are categorized into various types. One is on the basis of their operations, they are classified as open-ended and close-ended. Open-ended funds ante under this scheme, the period of the fund is not fixed. As and when you want to buy, you can buy. As and when you want to come out of that market, you can sell your units and come out. There is no fixed time for open-ended schemes. నీకు ఎప్పుడైతే బెనిఫిట్ అనిపిస్తుందో అప్పుడు నువ్వు కొనుక్కోవచ్చు, దాంట్లో సేవ్ చేయొచ్చు. ఎప్పుడైతే అరే ఇంకా చాలు పెద్దగా బెనిఫిట్ లేదు, ఐ వాంట్ లీవ్ మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్ అంటే యూ కెన్ సెల్ యువర్ యూనిట్స్ ఇన్ మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్ అండ్ యూ కెన్ కమ్ అవుట్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్. And there are mutual fund institutions like UTI is the first mutual fund institution which is set up in our country. It is going to act as an intermediary. It will do on behalf of you. On behalf of you, it is going to buy and sell your units. Next, another thing, another classification under this is close-ended funds. Close-ended funds means which have fixed period. ఒకసారి ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెడితే that your investment will be there for a fixed period. Now, after the expiry of that fixed period, you can take back your amount or you can reinvest it. As per your wish, you can do, but you will not have the right to withdraw or take back your amount before the expiry of that period. Second classification వచ్చేసి on the basis of income. On the basis of returns or on the basis of income fund, growth fund, conservative fund ఉంటాయి. ఇన్కమ్ ఫండ్ అంటే నీకు రెగ్యులర్ పీరియాడికల్ గా ఎవ్రీ మంత్, ఎవ్రీ క్వార్టర్లీ, ఎవ్రీ హాఫ్ ఇయర్లీ, ఇఫ్ యు ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు జనరేట్ రెవెన్యూ ఆన్ దోస్ మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్ స్కీమ్స్, యూ కాల్ ఇట్ యాజ్ ఇన్కమ్ ఫండ్. గ్రోత్ ఫండ్ అంటేనేమో ఒకసారి సింగిల్ ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెడతావు, బట్ ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ లాంగ్ టైమ్, ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ సమ్ ఇయర్స్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్ ఫర్ అప్రిసియేషన్. అంటే నువ్వు పెట్టిన ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ పెరగడానికి ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్. దీస్ ఆర్ కాల్డ్ లైక్ నెస్ట్ ఎగ్స్. నెస్ట్ ఎగ్స్ అంటే తెలుసు కదా, నెస్ట్ లో ఎగ్స్ పొదిగినప్పుడు హౌ మచ్ టైమ్ ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ టు బికమ్ అ బర్డ్. సో ఇట్ విల్ టేక్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్ అండ్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ పేషెన్స్ యూ నీడ్. ఒకసారి ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తాము, బట్ రిటర్న్స్ యూ కెనాట్, రెగ్యులర్ రిటర్న్స్ అని ఉండదు. ఒకేసారి లాంగ్ టర్మ్ లో you can take back the money. You will get more returns in long run. That is growth fund, you call it as. Third category under this is conservative fund. Conservative fund means where you are getting a reasonable rate of return on it. And what do you call, రావాల్సిన దానికన్నా higher rate, మంచి return expect చేస్తూ if you select this mutual fund scheme and if you invest your money, you call it as conservative fund. So this is on the basis of income. We have three types: income fund, growth fund, and conservative fund. Third category, on the basis of investment. On the basis of investment, you have again three types: equity fund, bond fund, taxation fund. Equity fund ante cheppanu kada, when you are buying equity funds, they are highly risky funds, but at the same time you will be getting certain ownership rights in that fund. That is equity fund. Bond fund means where your income is fixed in certain securities for certain period of time. And basically ఇది ఏంటంటే highly revenue generating investment. More returns రావడం కోసం you are going to buy certain bonds. Government bonds అవ్వచ్చు, which are very guarantee secured one, and returns are also very interesting. That is bond fund. Third category is taxation fund. This kind of schemes are being purchased or being invested to escape from tax. And because if you invest in these kind of funds, ఇలాంటి మ్యూచువల్ ఫండ్స్ లో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తే యూ విల్ హ్యావ్ లాట్ ఆఫ్ ట్యాక్స్ రిబేట్స్ ఫ్రమ్ ది ఐటీ డిపార్ట్మెంట్, ఇన్కమ్ ట్యాక్స్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్. జనరలీ ట్యాక్స్ ఫండ్స్, taxation funds will be purchased by salaried people, అంటే employees. All employees prefer to buy taxation fund to avoid or escape payment of tax, or because they derive the advantage of tax rebate. So this is about the mutual funds. Now you can also make a note that in India, first mutual funds are being set up in the year 1964 under the Act of Parliament. And later on, many institutions have come forward, and from the public sector, actually, SBI has taken the lead Government nundi SBI is the first one who has taken up the lead for mutual funds, followed by Canara Bank, India Bank, Bank of India, Punjab National. Ivanni kuda mutual fund business ni deal chestu unnai. And it has been extended to insurance sector also. Like LIC and GIC. LIC is Life Insurance Corporation and GIC is General Insurance Corporation. They too are dealing in mutual fund business nowadays. So, however, out of all these, UTI, Unit Trust of India, is dominating the entire mutual fund sector. It is the most trusted and most promoted mutual fund organization in our country. Okay, hope I'm clear.
Yes, ma'am.
So this is about fund-based financial services. By this topic, we have winded up with block 4 for you. All the concepts in block 4 of your syllabus are completed. Next, we'll be left with only one block, that is fifth block, where you are going to study about all fee-based financial services in that. Okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Fine. Am I clear with the class? Any queries in this?
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
You're all able to understand?
Yes,
Understood,
ma'am.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
fine. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
We'll meet next week. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes, sure.